Thanks so much for being here, and thank you to you two panelists for being here as well. I'd love it if you could briefly tell all of us who you are and what you do. We had a brief intro, but just tell us what you do, like on the day-to-day. What are your jobs?
Okay, I'll go first. So, well, we're both Joe and Joe, so Joe and Joe show until Steve arrives. So I'm from Santander Bank, where I'm the CIO for digital transformation. So I'm currently co-leading a transformation for our entire stack. So that combines the channels, our API middleware, through to our core, which we're also modernizing, and implementing a new data lake. So lots of exciting stuff, and all the stuff that was said in the previous opening comments, all very relevant to me.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm Chief Technology Officer at MoneyGram. I'm responsible for our technology strategy, our enterprise architecture, and then I lead our global software engineering and product development team.
So we're going to start out a little bit broadly, and then we'll focus a little bit more. One of the things that I really want to hear from the both of you is, how does your company approach automation?
Yeah, I love the way we approach it because it has become a part of our company, right? It's become a discipline in the organization. And for me, there's really sort of three parts to it. One is culture, one is commitment, another is cross-functional team. And when I think of culture, I think about it's an excitement, right? It creates an interest in change, in advancement, in automation, right? And driving results. When I think about commitment, we're going to put the dollars to have this team in place, right? And we're going to challenge them to do great things. And then that team has to be cross-functional. So it can't just live within IT organization. It can't just live within the business, right? We pull resources from multiple parts of the business, whether it be legal or compliance or technology. We've co-located them, right, even though they're virtual. And all they focus on every day is the problem set of what can we automate, where can we drive out tasks, what tool sets could we attempt to use.
Cool. And how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Joe said, and I'll add to that where we have kind of made a change is looking at our processes completely end to end. So rather than looking at a piece in the back office and automating that small piece, we're starting to look at the whole, from the customer journey all the way through to the back office operations, making sure that we fully understand, the happy paths and also the unhappy paths. And as Joe said, pulling in all the different stakeholders, whether it's AML, fraud, legal, bringing them all in so we can really understand, what controls and validations do we need to put into the customer flows so that we can make sure that the customer is serviced one and done, and we have the minimum amount of work that's pushed through to the back office.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit just about AI generally. Like, is there a part of your business that has been most changed by the use of AI? And if so, what has that been?
Yeah, I would say we're infants on the AI journey at MoneyGram. And I just say we're infants because we've just recently named our first head of data, chief data officer, and he, over the past couple of years, has been building the data discipline at MoneyGram. And he and I have worked together on how are we going to do more with AI. And so he's hired a data sciences team, and I've hired a few people on my team that understand sort of AI, and he's going to do the modeling, and I'm going to do the operationalizing. Like, how do I take his models and make them, a key part of our business?
Yeah. What about you? How has it been at Santander?
Similar. We're
Okay.
early in our journey. We have had some success with really personalizing the customer experience, so that we're understanding what our customers are doing, what are their behaviors, and then being able to target some of the offers. An example would be our credit cards. So
Okay.
really understanding, which customers can be pre-approved for a credit card, and then we can, make sure that that's something that we message them in the app while they're using the app. We've had some success there.
So, like, what kinds of signals are you picking up on, or usage are you picking up on to then, like, make that offer?
So, in understanding kind of the customer's liquidity, so
okay, sure.
in terms of whether or not they're suitable for a card, and just kind of their behaviours in terms of spending patterns.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that didn't work. I always like to hear like what wasn't actually, or maybe what seemed like a good idea, but wasn't actually, because there's a lot of learning that happens there. So something that didn't work, and was there something you tried to automate and just simply couldn't be automated? Like, what happened?
I mean, I don't think we've had anything that went terribly wrong, but I would say it's an evolution, it's a transformation, it's never over. So we're always learning. A good example would be in our onboarding flows, so our online account opening. Getting the conversion rate right is something that's really crucial, and we need to make sure that conversion rate is as high as possible. So we're always investing and analysing in how can we improve the fraud capabilities and tools that we use, so that we can make sure that we're considering every customer and we can say yes to as many customers as possible. And using the AI tools from different vendors and third parties that we use is really helping with that.
Cool. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, my sort of failure example is this, and it was at a time when we were adopting, as an organization, the organization I was in at the time, RPA. And we had this treasury function where this person had to go out, or group of people had to go out every day and go out to a website and then they would read about 300 data elements, put them in a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet has to get pushed across and uploaded for the Treasury Department, just to see where we stood as an organization. So we thought, that's a great use case for a bot. So we pointed the bot at that problem, and we watched it for about a month and said, oh, this is great. And then we turned our back on it. And our vendor changed the website. So suddenly the bot broke.
Oh no, not a broken bot.
And it was not a great day to be in Treasury or IT that day, but it just sort of gets back to my earlier, reinforcing this idea that automation is sort of a discipline and a culture. And you will build solutions that maybe have some fragility to them, but provide great results at the time. But you also have to have that discipline and mindset to say, we're going to keep an eye on these pieces that might be a little fragile.
At this point, when you are talking about automation and your company, how much of that is really automated? Like, how much of automation is truly automated for your companies at this point, and how much is really still involving? I mean, like what you were just talking about, that seems like it still requires like a lot of like human in the loop, which is what we see across the spectrum with applications of AI anyway at this point. It's not like, doesn't just like magically work on its own. So I'm curious, like, what is that like within your companies? Are you still really like doing a lot of the work with humans?
I mean, yes. Yeah, and our North Star would be to have, zero back office. But, that's never going to happen in reality. There's always going to be some, some work that needs to be either manually reviewed by a human. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's a case of, understanding, what those things are, and then, can we automate those at all, or will they always need to be, manually intervened? Yeah. I don't know, Joe, what about you?
Well, we certainly have humans. We have fewer humans than we had before, but I really see this as a journey for our organization. And it's a journey that's, there's not going to be a destination in 3 years or 5 years. We're always going to be looking for ways to squeeze out, whether it be back office or to squeeze optimization or to improve the consumer experience. And in our business, we're always going to get thrown curbs with regulatory or compliance or legal needs that force us to adjust and shift.
How, for the both of you, how do you figure out what to invest in automation-wise or AI-wise, and how to justify the return on investment when it comes to these technologies? Because, as you know, they can cost a lot up front, and it might not be immediately clear how it's going to benefit you or how long it's going to take to be beneficial, or at all.
I mean, I think at the moment, because we are partway through our journey, everything that we're doing, it makes sense at the moment, and we haven't, had to prioritize too many things. We're, looking at our overall customer onboarding and account opening process, and looking at all the ways we can automate as much as possible, so that the customer's account is opened, immediately, and there's very limited pieces that have to go to a manual review. So that all makes sense, and that's really helping in terms of making sure that we achieve our cost income ratio kind of aspirations. So for me, it all makes sense at the moment. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be times where we're going to have to kind of do some trade-offs and make some decisions around, where do we invest our money. But at the moment, we have kind of our goals and our vision, and we're working towards that.
You've talked a lot about like signing people up and fraud detection. Are those two for you guys? Are those two of the most important pieces?
That's super important, and I would add into that as well our cyber controls as well, which we layer in. So those super important, and then also on the servicing side, need to make sure that we have all of those customer flows automated. Examples would be like customer disputes, if a customer's got a card dispute, or maybe creating a wire. Those are two places where we're working on automation at the moment.
Cool. Joe, tell me a little bit about how you guys are working on it, how you figure out what to invest in, what's worth it.
Yeah, we have a business leader that reports to our COO, and she leads this automation team, this cross-functional automation team that we have. And so she has a list of things she can do and work on, and she has a process analyst and technology analysts that are constantly adding to that list, and they're working that list. And so she keeps a scoreboard, and I love her scoreboard because every time she gets a win, like the next quarter review, she puts the win and she shows how much savings. And then at the end of the year, when I sit down with our CFO and he says, Joe, why are you asking for all this money for this team again? I pull out her scoreboard and I said, let's talk about her scoreboard. Right, let's talk about what we've accomplished. And so she does a great job not only of just sort of collecting all of the opportunities that her and her team have identified, but she does a great job of tracking the wins and celebrating the wins, sending out a big announcement. And sometimes it feels like a small win. Maybe it's half a head, maybe it's 30,000 or 40,000 in savings, but you do 3, 4, 5 of these a month, and suddenly they add up into some substantial dollars. And so we're easily seeing happy 6-month returns in a year. So maybe we invest $1 million in the team, and we're getting that back in about $2 million a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about generative AI. Bill mentioned it, and I can't go a day without hearing about it in my job because I cover AI full time. So I'm curious, for both of you at your companies, how are you using generative AI in one form or another? If you are you experimenting with it? Is it restricted to certain employees? How are you using it? Joe, I know you've been using chatbots because we've talked about that before.
Yeah, well, generative AI and ChatGTP goes well beyond, right? It's an exponential leap beyond sort of where a chatbot is. For us, we're still figuring it out, frankly. How do we want to use generative? In fact, I have a team, our product management team and my technology leaders are finishing up an afternoon of brainstorming on how we want to use it. But much as Bill had suggested, hey, use my voice, tell this computer what we want to do. Those are the same kinds of things we're thinking about for our customers. Like if they could speak to our app instead of having to figure out how to navigate in our app, maybe that would be a better thing. So we're still investigating. We have a lot to figure out. Generative AI scares me, not because of what we can do for our business, but what could be done to us. Like I look at some of the amazing things that people have been able to do, like rendering faces with AI, or you even read some of the news story. I think a mother in Arizona thought her daughter had been kidnapped. She got a sort of a voice call, thought for sure it was daughter. I thought, if you can make a voice good enough to fool a mother, like that technology is there. So in a financial services business, I very much worry about fraud and the ability to create synthetic identity. So while my team and my product management team is worried about, hey, how can we add this to our products and make our services better and be more efficient? I'm like, oh boy, we should be talking about how to manage fraud because this is going to get challenging.
Sure. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. At the moment, we have a roadmap for leveraging it. But from a chatbot perspective, we currently have on our marketing website frequently asked questions, and we're using some AI for that. But that's very basic. And
Sure.
Similar to Joe, we have concerns around data protection and keeping our customers safe. And when we get into using, chatbots for answering customers' questions that relate to, their finances, we need to be very careful with that. So it's something that we're taking very slowly. But in terms of protecting our customers, one way we do use it is we have some tools baked into our online capabilities where we use AI to understand whether it really is the customer logging in. So using, behavioural analytics. So that's somewhere where where we're using it at the moment.
I'm curious, just quickly, for both of your companies, are you allowing, are employees allowed to use like ChatGPT or another LLM? Is that acceptable at work? Yes, no, sometimes? What are the rules?
It is. We haven't set a lot of hard rules yet, and that may be a risk for us. Now, a lot of what we do, is not externally facing. And what I mean is we aren't responding to consumers using sort of a free-form response from generative AI, except it may be in the case of a complaint, in which case we have to use very sort of specific language and respond in an appropriate way. I worry more about people putting our assets and our artifacts into, let's say, something like ChatGPT or a large language model, and what that might do in terms of just loss of intellectual capital for the organization, or even risk to the organization, because now people know more about how we work. So it becomes a competitive risk or an information security risk.
Okay. And Joanne, are employees at Santander allowed to use it internally for anything at this point?
We're not currently using it, no. And again, we need to make sure that we're using it in the right way and we're, complying with the relevant regulations. So definitely something, we want to start using in the future, but we need to make sure we kind of tick and tie everything. We could use it, for example, pulling together contracts, more nimbly, or maybe writing user stories and requirements for projects, making sure we have the include everything, have the right coverage. So there are examples where I think it would be really useful and quite straightforward to start implementing.
Okay, let's talk just a little bit about chatbots in particular, because Joe, I know that you've said in the past that your view has changed about the utility of chatbots. So explain a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, so I spent 13 years in the mortgage business, and I had a couple of chatbot projects. And the head of the call centers inevitably would come in and says, well, it's saving us about 1.5% of our calls. And I know what we spent on those, and I thought, well, that's pretty unimpressive. I'm not impressed with it. Well, lo and behold, I'm at MoneyGram, and last year, the head of our call center wants a chatbot. I'm like, oh, here I go again. And so the team that I have that works on those types of problems, I connected them, said, okay, go to work, make this thing work. And they integrated with some great technologies from multiple organizations and came up with a solution. We deployed it already into 7 countries, I think 3 different languages. And he's already seeing about a 13% reduction in call volume in our call centers. And I shouldn't say this publicly, he thinks we might get to 20 this year. So
that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Let's. We're gonna go to an audience question actually, because this is about the bot that we had talked about. This was a different bot, right?
Yes.
Or was this
no,
is another
this is my
bot?
bot. Yeah.
Okay.
My broken bot.
So when the website changed and the bot broke, what adjustments were made to resume the service? For example, did you create another bot to monitor the website changes, or did you enhance the existing bot to check for changes?
Yeah, we actually enhanced the existing bot, right, so that it would correctly identify, and also built a little of intelligence into that bot that says, hey, when you drop this data into the spreadsheet, why don't you add up the columns and do a few data checks. So yeah, it was a quick enhancement. Just took a day or two worth of work using bot technologies.
Okay. Also, I'm going to go to a question for you. I think this is a really good one. Joanne, so at Santander, you're talking about using AI to help approve customer account applications, such as for credit cards. How are you protecting against bias?
So we're leveraging different vendor solutions. So it's not something that we're building in-house on our own. And I think it's a constant fine-tuning and iterating, keeping an eye on it all of the time. So, we're making changes now and using different pieces and parts that are available from our vendor partners to make sure that, we have the best possible solution available to us. And then just continuously, working it through, iterating.
Okay. Let's see. we got one more here. This is Joe. This is for you. You said your team is still figuring out generative AI. What aspects are you investigating? What are you looking at? Validating things, testing, security, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we're focused on a couple of things. One is our product, which is really our service. Like, how can we create a better customer experience? And the customer experience, our product management, our chief product officer, she's thinking about things like, I want to integrate voice into our product or service now, right? Or I want to make this easier or that easier. I'm thinking about it in terms of my software engineering shop. Like, if I set up a private large language model and put all of our source code in it, then I could ask it questions all day long, like, where am I missing this? Where can this get better? And so when I think about software quality, can I ask one of these large language models, write me a Selenium script to automate testing for this type of problem or use case? And then certainly when I think about security, are there ways that we could detect bad actors? Because we absolutely have people that go out on the dark web and they buy a list of email addresses and passwords, and then they come along, load them up into a bot. And while there's a lot of great WAF technology out there that does a pretty good job of protecting us overall, they can't catch everything. So what can I begin to add, to layer in to continue to protect our consumers from a security perspective?
So we've talked a lot about AI and automation. I know a lot of people, when they think about automating processes at a company, they also think a lot about job losses if people aren't needed to do certain things. So has this been something that your company has faced? And if so, how? What has happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's anxiety
Sure.
about that for sure. But I think with automation, as somebody else said it earlier, there's always going to be the need for humans, and it means that we can divert our teammates to more kind of high value customer interactions, working through more complex cases with customers. So from that perspective, it's don't be afraid of it. This is an opportunity to kind of reskill, upskill. So I think we should look at it in a positive light.
Okay.
Yeah, our story is similar. The heads are slowly being lost primarily through attrition.
Okay.
Then we do use a lot of vendor partners for BPO type services. So when we go to renew those contracts or look at the next year, we just sort of begin to draw down the amount of labor that we need from those partners. And so it's been fairly benign without having to cut or disrupt someone's life. And like Joe said, we look for ways to upskill people, give them different opportunities, or if they leave, we don't backfill them.
Okay. One thing that I was really curious about is what your company's biggest automation-related challenge is right now. Like, what is the thing you're thinking about the most regarding automation and AI right now?
Well, I mean, I've talked a lot about the customer-facing side of things, and I would say we're investing and we want to spend time on some of our more IT enablers. So,
Okay.
Deployment automation, for example, is something that's really close to my heart because we still have a lot of manual deployments, which take time, are prone to error, and are just frustrating for our developers. They want to develop cool stuff and get it out there into production. So automating, our deployments is going to give us a real uplift. Means that we can, deploy value to our customers faster, which will be awesome. And then in addition to that, other things like, I think Joe mentioned testing automation as well, so we can get better test coverage. So that's something we're investing in as well. And also observability, making sure we have the right tools to be monitoring our applications and making sure we're being proactive and catching things before they go wrong.
Okay. What about for you?
Yeah, there's a number of areas where we're looking to automate. One is pricing. We do business in 200 countries, and it's a very competitive landscape. And how do we update pricing in an archaic platform, and how do we do that quickly, right? And how do we do it in a way that we know we're not going to break something in such a way that customers get a great benefit, but we're losing in the end.
Sure.
That's an example of where we're working to improve. Another example is how we market to our customers. It's still somewhat of a manual process today where our data analytics team is hoarding over the data and they're working with the marketing team and they're trying to figure out, do we send this campaign, do we not? Like, if we could accelerate some of that development of customer segmentation.